Everyone. Oh, well, he's here, so come welcome Rob Reiner. I had this really nice intro planned, and you guys ruined it.
Oh, they didn't.
Yeah, can you?
That was not ruined at all.
Can we do take two? Go reset.
I'll just pretend I'm not.
Well, I just wanted to say I am very excited to welcome one of my favorite actors and filmmakers. We always talk about people having range as actors, but as a director, this gentleman's first few movies included This Is Spinal Tap, The Princess Bride, Misery, and now Shock and Awe. Along the way, he's picked up an Oscar nomination, 9 Golden Globe nominations, 2 Emmy Awards for his acting, and 3 DGA nominations. Again, please welcome Rob Reiner.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations
my pleasure.
On an incredibly timely and powerful movie. But because this is a SAG audience and you began as an actor,
Yes,
I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
Okay, so here's what's interesting. I think it was either, I think it was a part on Batman, the series Batman. I think it was a scene with Burgess Meredith. He was the Penguin, and I think I was like a room service guy bringing the thing.
No
I think that was
way.
But here's what's funny, because I went to, and I think in those days it was like $100. I think was the SAG minimum, for a day. Yeah. So I got my SAG. I went down to SAG, and it was to sign up, and they said, "What's your name?" I said, "Robert Reiner," because that's my name. And they said, "Well, you can't have that name." I said, "What do you mean? That's my name." Well, there already is a Robert Reiner. There was. I had no idea. So that's when I made Rob. I put Rob down.
Wow.
That's how I became that.
Did people always call you Rob, though?
No.
Really?
My parents called me Robbie always. But nobody ever said Rob.
Did they call you Robert?
Robert or Robbie.
Wow.
Those were the things I got.
Did you ever debate going with Robbie?
No, that felt a little, unless I was doing like playing like in Father Knows Best or, Leave It to Beaver. But then when you get older, you can't be a Robbie anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a Ricky Schroeder thing.
It's right. Ricky, that's exactly it, Ricky. As a matter of fact, one of my best friends in high school is Ricky Dreyfuss.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and that's, Ricky Dreyfuss was what, I still call him Ricky, but he's because he's Richard Dreyfuss, he's got an Oscar and everything. But it was, but he was in a movie years ago. It was called Inserts, and the movie was about a young phenom director, like a brilliant genius, Orson Welles, who had fallen on, he had a great success, and then he couldn't do anything, and he wound up, he's now shooting pornos, and it was called Inserts. And so there was a lot of, R-rated, whatever. There was a lot of sex. And my parents went to see this movie, and they're watching the movie, and my mother turns to my father and she says, "Carl, we can't let Robbie play with Ricky anymore." Yeah. So that was Robbie and Ricky, yeah.
Wait, weren't you probably like 25 at that point?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I was in my 20s, yeah.
But forbidden to see that Ricky.
Yeah, couldn't see that. No, Ricky, don't let him play.
So I want to start at the beginning with Shock and Awe, because from what I understand, you've been wanting to tell a story sort of about, I don't know if it was about the Bush administration or specifically their actions after 9/11.
It was about the invasion of Iraq.
It was.
I wanted to tell this story right from the get-go, 2003. I was of draft age, during the Vietnam War, and I couldn't believe that in my lifetime we were going to war again based on a lie. And I read and everything, and I said, there's no connection between Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda. There's no way that these aluminum tubes could ever enrich uranium, and there was no definite proof that there was any weapons of mass destruction. There was no imminent threat from Saddam Hussein. And then I started reading up about it, and I read this a treatise that was written for the American Enterprise Institute. There was these neocons it was called the Project for the New American Century. And in it, they talked about how, as America had become the last remaining superpower after the Berlin Wall fell, the question was what to do with this newfound power, and how were we going to export democracy and spread it throughout the world. And one of the things they talked about very specifically was going into Iraq, invading Iraq, and hopefully, as we describe in the film, put a Western-style democracy there. It would proliferate. It would help Israel. So I knew that was the goal, and so I could see all this happening, and it was there available for you if you wanted to read it. And I thought, I got to tell a story about this. And so I didn't know how to approach it. At first I thought, well, maybe it's a satire, like a Dr. Strangelove, because it seems so bizarre, that we were doing this. And I worked with Larry Gelbart, who's a great, was a great screenwriter, and he's passed away, but he's a good friend of my dad's, and we worked on it, and I never could get it the way I liked it. And then I worked with another writer, and we tried a more dramatic approach, and then that didn't work either. And then a few years went by, and I saw this documentary that Bill Moyers had done about these 4 journalists, these 4 guys from Knight Ridder. And I said, that's the way in, that these guys were basically finding out what I was discovering, and nobody, I felt like, Michelle and I, where is Michelle? Where are you? Where is she? She's back there. Michelle is my wife. She was one of the producers on the film. And I mean, we went and marched. There were marches all over the world. Protests not to go in, and I felt like that it was like you're watching your kid run into the street, knowing that you're going to get hit by their truck and feeling helpless to be able to save them. So that's the way we felt, and so once I saw that, I said, okay, these guys are into the same. They understood that. And then I saw another documentary about a young guy who was from a military family. They had all served. And after 9/11, he signed up. He wanted to go fight for his country. He went to Afghanistan. And he was in Afghanistan, and then for some reason, he doesn't know why he's being sent to Iraq. And he didn't quite understand it because they hadn't finished the mission. They didn't capture bin Laden. The Taliban, the Al-Qaeda was still, very much alive. And he wondered, why am I going to Iraq? And then literally, like in the film, within a week, his transport hit an IED, and he lost the use of his legs for the rest of his life. And so I try to, put that in there because it's like the line that Tommy Lee Jones has, which is, when the government fucks up, the soldiers pay the price. And so to me, it was about getting the truth out to the American people. Can we communicate with them in such a way that they understand what's going on, and holding the powers that be accountable? And the line that my character in the film says, when the government says something, you only have one question to ask: is it true? And that's the job of a journalist. And because of 9/11, and we were traumatized by it, and the country was wrapped up in patriotism, many of the journalists couldn't see the forest for the trees. They didn't want to look unpatriotic, so they went with the propaganda that the Bush administration put out. It's interesting because we screened this the first time over in Zurich in Switzerland, and it was like the most incredible response. And I thought, wow, they get it. Yeah. They understood. Everybody in the world understood this was a mistake. This is not something we should ever have done. And so it's interesting that what can happen in this kind of groupthink that journalists have, where they don't want to lose access. They also don't want to look like they're unpatriotic, and so they're facing those headwinds. Now, this is something I've been thinking about for a long time, but now we released the film. It comes out, Friday, and all of a sudden it's like resonating because the press is under attack. They're being called the enemy of the people, and they're facing the kind of headwinds that we've never experienced before.
They're literally being murdered.
Literally, well, they're getting hurt, and they're being kept from certain, venues, not allowed to go. And this is the first time in American history where we have an administration that is basically backed up by state-run media. And that's scary because they speak to a certain group of people, as 40% of the country, which you cannot penetrate. You cannot penetrate. So that's what this is about. It's about trying to break through with the truth, to give the truth to the American people, because like Bill Moyer says at the beginning of the movie, you don't have a democracy unless you have an informed public with a free and independent press. So it winds up to be, kind of resonant in that way. But we didn't start out to do that. It was all about, making sure that the public got the truth so that nothing disastrous could happen. Well, now we don't see a war yet, but we have kind of an emotional civil war, an intellectual civil war going on. I hope it doesn't, devolve into, violence, but we're what's at the stake now, maybe not lives, but it's 242 years of self-rule. And so let's see what happens. I mean, right now the courts are holding, but who knows if Kavanaugh gets on there and makes it that you can't prosecute Trump, or you got the checks and balances are out the window. There's nobody in the Congress that's willing to, you watch this guy and it's like Michelle and I are in a state of like craziness at all times. I've never been so anxious and crazy. You wake up and he's screaming about Germany being, this horrible country, and he's trashing all our allies and sucking up to Putin, and you go, what is going on here? What's happening to our democracy? And so to me, the press is doing their job. They are, for the most part. That's 60% of the press. The other 40%, and Fox and Sinclair and Breitbart and Alex Jones, they're poisoning the well, and they're just, emboldening Trump to go even further.
I actually was curious, when did you start working on this movie, like actually start filming? Because you might not have known it would be so resonant, but
we didn't. I mean, we were shooting it during the campaign, and we actually watched election night while we were shooting, and it was like, oh my God, wow. This was like we couldn't believe what we were seeing, and then we finished it, and then it's and then he had said things like fake news and enemy. He'd said that, but now he just says it all the time, and it's scary.
What was it? Do you remember the first day going back after the election? What scene you shot, or what the atmosphere was like?
I don't remember. I mean, all I remember is just being in a state of just like somebody hit me over the head with a sledgehammer. I mean, it was like, what? I mean, and I believe that during the campaign and even before, during the primaries, the press, they never thought he was going to get the nomination. They never thought he was going to win. So they didn't do the due diligence they should have done, which is the kind of thing they should have done, in the run-up to the war. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. And I've made this point to a lot of people who said, what do you mean they criticized me? I said, no, wait. Let me explain. He said, if they had spent as much time on Hillary Clinton's emails, and all you heard about Donald Trump was he stole people's life savings with a fraudulent university, and he had to pay $25 million to settle a lawsuit that came from other people's money funneled through a fake foundation. And all you heard was that, and had heard that as many times as you heard emails, you'd go, well, wait a minute, they didn't prove anything with the emails, and he actually paid $25 million to people for defrauding them out of their life savings. And if you remember what happened to Mitt Romney, we'd kill for Mitt Romney right now. I mean, he's not a bad person. I mean, he's a decent man. I mean, he's a Mormon. He has lots of kids and stuff. But if you remember what happened to Mitt Romney, the thing came out about Bain Capital. Bain Capital was this company that he worked for, and they took over other companies, and they downsized it, and people lost their jobs, and that was that. And that was the end of him. I mean, they tarred him with that. Bain Capital is like a great thing for Donald Trump. I mean, you look at what he did and how he stole money from people and cheated people out of money. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But we didn't get that. They spent a lot of time on the Hollywood tape, and nobody cares about that. I mean, yeah, it's disgusting. He's a disgusting guy. The worst part of it is that he is sexually assaults women. That's the bad part. But it seems to be that the Christian right, they don't care about any of that stuff. They don't care. They don't care, So it's it comes down. I hate to say it, but it comes down to racism. It really does. I mean, it's
well,
yeah, it really does. I mean,
sexism.
And sexism, both of those things. It really does. So, here's where we are. So that's why it's the last battle of the Civil War. And the people say, well, are you saying all Trump voters are racist? No. A lot of them are.
Yeah. But
there are a lot of them who don't care that the other ones are racist.
Yeah.
So then they're racist.
Yeah.
It's like racist adjacent, There's basically, they're not saying, hey, what are you doing? Nobody's doing that, So that's where we are.
I'm curious because I know you've acted in your films before.
I have.
Probably most prominently in Spinal Tap. Usually it's
yeah, that was
smaller.
improvised. That whole film was improvised. It's a little different. I don't really like to act and also direct. It's too confusing for me. I mean, it's like a split focus. And I've done it before, and it's okay, but I don't like it. I wasn't supposed to be in this film.
Oh, I was curious.
No, this was Alec Baldwin was cast to play that part. And we actually rearranged the entire schedule for him so that he could get out on Fridays so he could go up to New York and beat Trump, for Saturday Night Live. And we had been shooting for a week, with Woody Harrelson and Tommy Lee Jones and Marsden and everybody. And we get a call on a Saturday saying his agent says he's not going to come. He's quit. He's not doing it. He drops out. I go, oh my God, what am I going to do? I mean, I don't know what to do. I mean, who can I call? And Michelle says, well, why don't you play the part? And I went, well, I'm available. I guess I should play it. And I work cheap, It was a little bit more than $100, but I mean, the thing. And then I'm playing this guy John Walcott, and Michelle gave me the one bit of direction: try to be less Jewish. So that was so I tried. I don't think I totally succeeded there.
Wow, so you were already shooting when he dropped out.
Yeah, we shooted for a week,
horrifying.
and he was supposed to shoot on Monday, and it was a Saturday. I got the call, and the only good thing is that I didn't have time to. There's the wardrobe. We didn't have any wardrobe. We had to take his wardrobe, and, I'm taller. And the only good thing is that the waist was way bigger and that I had to take it in.
Really?
That was good. So I like the fact that Alec Baldwin was fatter than I am. Yeah.
And we wouldn't know that if he had shown up to do the job.
That's right. You would have said, hey, Alec Baldwin, maybe Rob's fatter than Alec Baldwin.
I love this cast, and you're working with Woody Harrelson, who starred in your previous film, LBJ. Yeah. Well, did you start to talk to him about this on that set, or was it just...
No, because we didn't have it. We started writing Joey Hartstone, who also wrote LBJ. I asked, when I finally got the take on how to do it, I asked him if he wanted to do this. So he started writing it while we were doing LBJ. So it was after that I said to, Woody, I mean, Woody's great. I have a great time with him. He's fun, and he's such a great actor, and the only thing negative, I mean, it's good for him and it's good for most people. He's a raw vegan. So
that's right.
Which is good. I mean, it's very healthy, but he brings things to, here, Rob, try this. That tastes good. That's good, Woody. It's really good.
Tastes just like meat.
To the scripts over here, eat some of this because then you won't notice I didn't eat it all. Yerba mate, tea, or whatever that stuff is. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because this seems like such a natural collaboration, but this is your first film with Tommy Lee Jones?
Yes. Yeah, he's great. I mean, that guy's a great actor. I mean, here's the thing. When you get with a great actor, who's a professional, really, because you hear Tommy Lee Jones, he's kind of, ornery and difficult, but he's a pro. I mean, he comes in and he bang, 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 he knows the line. The only thing is, he doesn't hold up his end of the conversation all that
Yes.
well.
I've interviewed him.
He doesn't, you sit there and there's that awkward lull, and, trying to make, and so I know he owns this ranch in Texas, so there's a lull there, and I go, so how many head of cattle do you have? And he goes, you don't want to know that. What are you going to do with that information? He's like, I don't really, I just thought I would, fill in the thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
but
big
he's
on
a great
the small
actor. He's a
talk.
great actor. Yeah, no, he's not good with that.
Yeah, I've tried to interview him before.
You did?
Oh, a couple times.
How was that? Did you get your dental degree? See, pulling teeth. See, you have to go a little further for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was very, very pained 1 or 2 word answers, and I was like, but man, does he save it for the screen?
No,
He's phenomenal.
He's an incredible actor.
Yeah.
There's no false moments. It's amazing when you get him. Yeah.
You have such a great track record with not only discovering actors, but giving actors, really great opportunities. Do you think maybe that comes from your acting background?
I don't know where it comes from, but I know that the actors, they like to work with me because I'm an actor, but also, I never asked them to do anything that I know that I couldn't do. It's like a thing where, you're a coach of a team or whatever, and you don't say, okay, I want you to stop at mid-court and hit a shot. You can't do it. But I know if I can make, I'm a good actor. I'm not the best actor in the world, but I know if I can make a transition in a scene and make it work, I know the actors can do it. I'm not going to ask them to do something, ridiculous. And I learned from Carroll O'Connor. I learned a lot from him because, he's a great actor. And he said, you don't have to do a lot. If you're in a scene, you don't have to do a lot. If you have a good script with a story that works and the dialogue is good, the script, the story will support you. It'll be like your foundation. It'll support you. And, so the audience will read in what they need to read in, and you don't have to do a lot of, facial gymnastics or anything like that. And he's right. So if something's not working, and it's like, it's usually the script that's the problem, I feel.
You've had to cast, you've worked with, wrestlers, you've worked with kids, you've worked with Billy Crystal. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a wrestler and a kid.
Yeah, got lumped into there.
Yeah.
What's the hardest role you've ever had to cast?
That one you said, Andre the Giant.
Of course.
That was the hardest role because think about it. It's not like you throw a stick and you hit 50 giants. There's not like there's, where all the giants come in. There's like 3 giants, And Bill Goldman, he was the one who suggested Andre. I said, well, he's perfect. Andre the Giant. He's called the Giant. And we couldn't find him. Because he's wrestling all over the world. He goes from one place to the other with Vince McMahon. He's 1 week here, 1 week there. And so we're trying to find him, and we get a call. We had just gone to scout in Ireland. The Cliffs of Insanity, for the Cliffs of Moher, in Ireland for the thing. And we come back to London and we get into the hotel and somebody says, Vince McMahon called and Andre will be in Paris tomorrow. And if you want to meet him, you can meet. We went right back out to the airport, got on a plane, checked in a hotel, and hung around for a while. And at 2 o'clock, when we were supposed to meet him, I come back to the hotel, and the man at the desk says, there's a man waiting for you at the bar. And I walk in, and there's a landmass sitting on a bar stool. And I thought, this is the biggest person I ever saw in my life. And, we talked a little bit. I brought him to the room, and I gave him a 3-page scene to read. And he reads the scene, and I didn't understand a word he said. I understood nothing. And I'm looking at it, and I said, Andre, you've only been in one place for 1 or 2 weeks. This is like you'll have to be here 15 weeks, And he says, okay. He says, you did three pages, 15 weeks. I said, no. This is only one scene. You got lots of scenes. It's not. He thought about 15 weeks they're going to shoot 3 pages. I said, no, it's a lot. And I said, you think you could do it? I do it, boss. I do it. I went, okay. He leaves, and I turned to Andy Scheinman, my producing partner. I said, I don't know. I don't know if he can do it, but he's perfect. I mean, he is the guy, you know. So I said, you know, the worst is we'll loop it, you know, or something, because his presence is great. But what I did was I took his part and I put it on a tape, and I sent it to him to, you know, for him to hear how I wanted it to sound, because he's French, you know, he's French to begin with.
Right.
And so, yeah, he was raised in the same town as Samuel Beckett.
Didn't he give him rides?
Well, he used to walk him to school.
Yeah.
So, you know, the guy who wrote Waiting for Godot wrote, you know, walked Andre the Giant to school. Yeah. You know, it's crazy.
Insane.
But anyway, I sent him the tape, you know, and he learned it. He learned it. You know, he listened to it over and over and over, and he learned it, and I didn't have to loop one thing. I mean, he was, you know, he has a thick accent, but, you know, you can make it out, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in making this film, what ended up being the biggest challenge on set? Because I want to talk to you separately about financing and release.
Yeah. Well, the biggest challenge for any of these independent films these days is you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of time. I mean, this was like 26 days, you know.
Wait,
and,
really?
Yeah. Yeah, you just, you know, same thing with LBJ. I had 26, I think, or 27 days. Same thing. You know, so it's hard, you know. That's the challenge. Everything's a challenge. You have to, you know, the only thing that's good about having made a lot of films is you get to learn the craft in such a way that it's like a puzzle. You can put it together very quickly, you know, and figure out what angles you need. And, you know, I read something years ago with John Huston would say that because in those days, the producer would cut the film, you know, the director would just be like a gun for hire, you know, and he'd just shoot the film. He didn't even cast it, you know, he'd shoot it and then he'd be taken on. You look at somebody's filmography in those days and they shot 4 films in 1 year, you know, because they didn't stay around for, you know, post-production, all that. But what he would say is he would put the camera in places where it only could come together in a certain way. So I did a lot of that, you know. I did, you know, and you know where the camera, you know, I always say put the audience in the best seat in the house. Give them the best seat in the house. Say this is what I want you to look at right now, and then you go from there. And so you can wind up economizing and figuring out how to do it. So the whole thing was a challenge, but you know, I like doing that. You know, the best thing about filmmaking is you go there and you hire people that, you know, if you work before with them and you like them, you know, you bring them back and it's like, oh, I get to see that person again. You know what I mean? It's like, nice, I like that person and I see him, and because you're spending your time during the day and that's the experience you have, so.
And then, am I correct in hearing that did you have trouble finding distribution, or was
Oh yeah, we did. We had terrible trouble. I mean, you know, it's a political film. You know, people don't. You know, studios are not going to go anywhere near this. They only make movies that have, you know, the word a man and a number in the title. Iron Man 4, Ant-Man 6, Superman thing, Batman, the man and a number. And if you don't have that, you don't get the. So every other independent film is, you know, it's cobbling together, you know, finance here, there, and luckily the guy who helped put together, Matt George, who was another producer, who helped put together LBJ, we went through him and he found some financing. And Michelle and I, you know, actually, I wanted to make the movie bad. It's not I would never suggest you put your own money into it.
That's supposed to be the number one rule.
It's bad.
Yeah.
You never, unless you know, I'm going to lose this money. If you're okay with that, it's like going into gambling. You know, I got this, I got $500, and I know I'm going to lose it, and no, it's okay. And if you win, you go, hey, that's good. But I knew we were losing, but I wanted to make the film, so we put some money into it.
Is it the first time you've done that?
No, I did it one other time. That one worked out okay. I did it 2 other times, actually. I did it once with a Whit Stillman film. That we made, and then one that I did with Morgan Freeman.
Magic of Belle Isle.
Yeah, that one. But it was only like $5 million. The whole movie was $5 million.
Do you need us to pass a hat around? Because I think we all have some cash.
No. You
happy
don't.
To contribute.
I don't need the. No. There's no.
Just curious, and you've probably been asked this, but you know, I know you wanted to make this movie 10 years ago. Well, maybe not this movie, but you wanted to make a movie 10 years ago. Do you think, with as politically active as you are, you would want to make a movie about Trump?
You know, I think in time, there's going to be a great movie about Trump, but we don't know until we see the effects of what he's had on this country. And first of all, if democracy survives, which I believe it will, I think we're strong, hopefully we will. But when time goes by, we'll have a little perspective on how all that happened, and then I think you'll see some really interesting movies about what happened to America at that point.
Would you want to do it? Is it something maybe?
Yeah, it depends on, like I say, I want some distance. I want to really process all this and say, what was at the core of it? I have an idea of it. I know that we were already a divided country, and that he came in as a reality star, and he's a product of what I call the Kardashianization of America. And he comes up, and then you got Vladimir Putin, who's been trying to destroy democracy for a long time, becomes an active player. You have social media that's playing a role in how that all came about. But, it's classic autocratic, playbook, which is, you got an angry class of people, and you stoke their anger by telling them that those people over there. By the way, he was successful with Brexit, Putin. That was like a training ground, and then he came here because it's the same playbook. Those immigrants, those other people are going to come in and ruin your life. They're going to take your jobs. They're going to ruin your life. And so we got to keep them out. And that's what he played on. And that's what Putin was able to piggyback on. So the thing that was the most eye-opening to me, anybody who is of color knows about prejudice and knows how the racism. And I'm not an idiot, there's racism. There's been racist original sin in America. So there's racism. What I didn't know is how much there was and how many people there were. I was shocked to find that out, that there's a big swath of people, because clearly this is a reaction to the first African-American president, and people are desperately clinging to the idea of the Browning, if you will, of America, So it's scary that there's that many people. I thought, no, it's fringe groups, there's those neo-Nazis, those, white supremacist types, but, they're in the fringe. They're not the fringe. They're not the fringe. They're there, and it's really scary.
And they're emboldened lately.
They're emboldened. Yes. You got a guy who's basically with a bullhorn saying, go right ahead, and do whatever you want to do. There are good people on both sides.
I think the reason I'm pushing this on you is because I think Woody would make a really good Trump.
Well, listen, he can do anything.
And you're probably not going to get Alec Baldwin, so.
No, well, I could get Alec Baldwin, but then he'd quit on me.
Exactly.
It would take a great actor to do this, because it's not about imitating Trump, or, doing the hands of this thing or whatever. It's about getting into the soul of who this guy is, which is an empty...
If it exists, yeah.
Well, no, it's an empty soul. It's somebody who has been severely damaged for a long period of time and is doing everything to fill up this empty hole and can't do it, And so it's going to take a special person to be able to play that, because you're going to have to see... there's one thing of what he does when he's in public and to get people to try to love him or whatever. It's another thing that I got to feel that when he's alone, there's some dark is happening there. He did have Mein Kampf and Hitler's speeches by his bedside. I don't think I don't think he reads, but that he read, I think.
I just want to take a couple quick questions from the audience if we have time.
Sure.
Okay, cool. There's one from Nikki Jacobs. Hey, right there. Wants to know, how has your early experience as an actor informed your directing style? You were really one of the first actors I can think of.
There's a lot of great actors who've become really good directors. You go back to Orson Welles and even Elia Kazan was an actor. I always felt that the actors made the best directors if they were so inclined to want to go that way, because especially you're making movies that are character driven, that are about the human condition. If you know how to inhabit a character and you know what goes on inside of a person when they're doing a scene, that can translate to the film. And I I always felt that the actors, the actor, I mean, Francois Truffaut was an actor. I mean, there were a lot of really good, Sidney Pollack was an actor,
Great actor.
Yeah, Redford and so many good ones that I find that they make the best actor. I mean, the best filmmakers. Even Sidney Lumet started an actor. They all have that feeling. And I think if you know what an actor goes through, you'll never make him make moves that are stupid to hit a mark that doesn't make sense. What I like to do is you block a scene out, and the actors will kind of tell you where they want to go, because by the time you're shooting, they know these characters better than you do. I mean, they're inhabiting them. So I think it helps. It does help.
Kind of piggybacking on that, we have a question from Lauren Mora. Hope I pronounced right.
Hey, Lauren, how are you?
Wants to know about the conversations you have with your casting director before you begin a project, as well as the conversations you have making decisions when it comes to one actor over another for a role.
Well, here's what's interesting. I've done, virtually every movie except, I think, Spinal Tap, I think, with Jane Jenkins. She's worked with, I've worked with her for forever, and she's basically semi-retired. I mean, she doesn't really, but every time I'm going to do it, I call Jane up and I say, come on, we'll do it. So we have already a real shorthand. I mean, we go over, the kind of person I'm looking for, this, that, and the other. But she never brings in anybody that I go, what? It's always, pretty close, it's like that. And so we're pretty much on the same wavelength. The hardest one was to cast Stand By Me, because you have children and many of them haven't ever acted before. I mean, Jerry O'Connell, who's now become, he's a little fat kid. Now he's a big hunk. Yeah. He's a hunk, good-looking guy.
He got the last laugh.
But he comes in then, and he didn't. At that time, they were showing reruns of All in the Family somewhere, and he comes and he looks at me, he says, "Hey, are you that guy on Channel 5?" I didn't know what he was talking about. He saw the show. I mean, he was just so guileless, Yeah. And again, it was one of those things where you go, I don't know if he can act or not, but he's really Vern, he's that kid. And that was hard to find the kids to do that, especially playing Teddy, Corey Feldman, to have that, because this kid was abused as a child. Yeah. Teddy, his father held his ear to the stove and all this stuff. And I thought, that's at the age of 12 or 13, how many kids, unless they've had, and he came in, he had this anger and this rage, and I went, wow, I don't know where it's coming from, but, he had it. So you look for certain things that, that can make it real. And I like actors, I love people like Richard Jenkins, I'm sweating here now because it's hot, but I always call them unsweaty actors, They're people that don't push anything, it's there, you just do it. Morgan Freeman's like that too. He just never pushes anything. It's just right there.
Sorry, I'm from where you shot Stand By Me, so my mind
from
Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon. Yeah, we were based in Eugene. We shot in Brownsville, and
right.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, I actually know the kid who played the body of all
the
weirdest things. Yes.
Yeah. He laid there,
He has pictures in his home of him covered in this horrible makeup and ants.
Yeah.
So sorry, my mind journeyed for a little bit. But I was curious because in the casting process, having gone through it yourself so many times, do you think you have in auditions a certain empathy?
Yeah, but here's what I always tell actors, because a lot of actors come for a part, and there's a reason they get the part, they don't get the part. It's all kinds of things that are in a director's head that, it doesn't mean anything whether you do. I say to actors, I said, don't try to get the part. Just have an acting experience. Use it as a time to perform. You're going to get a scene, you're going to get to do a scene, and enjoy the acting, because if you make yourself thinking about, I bet I got to get that part, then it's dead. And I remember this a long time ago, Michael Caine, great actor, and he's at the time, this is many years ago, that you would get $1 million was the most an actor for a picture. Mm-hmm. That was $1 million. That was the biggest thing you get. And he was asked about that, and he says, I get $1 million to sit around. He says, the acting I do for free.
Oh.
And that's what he meant by it, is that I just want to act, you know? And Jack Nicholson said the same thing. He said the same thing. He said, we were doing the famous speech that he has in Few Good Men, where, you can't handle the truth. It's a long speech, it's a very long speech. And I said to him, I said, Jack, we can either shoot your side of it, or, I got a lot of reactions, Tom and me and Kevin Pollak and Kevin Bacon, and, I have all these people to shoot, and I can shoot them, and then you can be off camera, and then I can turn around. Whatever you want. If you feel like you're ready to go now, let's go. If not, I shoot them, and then I'll turn around. He says, well, why don't you shoot them, and I'll use it as a rehearsal, and I'll work into it. I said, fine. So we start shooting it, and he's off camera. Every single performance exactly the same. Exactly what you see on screen. And after 2 or 3 takes with I said, Jack, maybe, you want to save it a little bit for when I come around onto you. He says, no, Rob, you don't understand. I love to act.
Oh, wow.
He says, and I don't get good parts like this, So that was his thing,
That's
and
amazing.
so you got to just take the joy in doing it, because, I said to a lot of actors, even if you get into a television series, and in my day, All in the Family was on 7 months we'd work. It would be on every week, whatever. You work for 7 months, and then you get, 4.5, 5 months off. So even if you're working like crazy, you're still off for 5 months. If you don't get another job, so you better really love the work, love to do it, and have other things that you can, be interested in, because if you'll make yourself crazy otherwise. Yeah.
There's a question you kind of already answered the question, but it was, there's somebody here, Jared Shipley. Where are you? Oh, okay. He worked with you on Being Charlie. Wants to thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. Yeah.
Wanted to talk about
that. We shot in 20 days.
Really?
We shot that one 20 days
son.
in Utah. We were in Salt Lake City.
Wow.
Yeah.
He wanted to ask specifically about the challenges of acting in this role, and I know you mentioned you usually don't like to take.
Yeah, that's the challenge,
parts.
because my focus is so split, so that after a take, you have to run back and look at the monitor. First of all, I don't like watching myself on screen anyway, but now I have to do it because Michelle would be at the monitor and she would go, oh, I think it's good. And I say, yeah, it's good. It's okay. I don't know. Let's just, you know what I mean? You have to judge yourself. Gee whiz. When I'm watching other actors, it's easier. I can, look at what, see what they're doing. I remember John Cusack, I did this movie, The Sure Thing, and John Cusack, he was only 17, and he had never, he had little parts and things, but he never had a big part. And he says to me, can I come to dailies? And I said, I don't know if that's such a good idea, because here's the thing. There's lots of footage there I'm going to be looking at, and a lot of it is garbage, and because you're not going to use it all. You're going to just use that little beauty of a moment, And I said, so you don't want to sit through that? He says, no, it doesn't matter to me. I said, I can watch. We start looking at it, and there's a couple of really bad things, and he goes, oh, I can't look at this anyway. Get me out of here. Get me out of here,
Finally, we have a question from Markham Stansberry Jr., way back there. Hey, wants to know what sparked you to be politically active when it would be very easy for you to be quiet.
Well, I was raised, my mother and father both were politically active when I was young, growing up. They were against the Vietnam War, and they were, very into the civil rights movement, all that stuff. So that was something that I was raised in. And then, I was lucky that I had 2 men in my life, my father and then Norman Lear, to be looking up to. And he also was politically active, and, obviously not just All in the Family, but he created People for the American Way. And I saw, okay, you can use your notoriety, your fame, whatever, to do something else. So it's something I've always wanted to do. And now, with Michelle, that's the greatest partner you could have, because she's crazier than I am when it comes to wanting to right every wrong. We went down to Tornillo, down in El Paso, and she, we gotta go, and she said, come on, let's go to the rally, this thing. And so I make this joke all the time. If it wasn't for her, I'd be sitting at home going like the TV like this and like, going like that. And the sad thing is there's no remote. It's just my hand doing that. So it's really sad. But so if you can do something and you have the capacity to, make a change or help out or whatever, I feel you do it. And I know that, half the people they hate me. I'm a libtard, I'm a this, I'm a that, whatever. That goes with the territory, and so you do it.
Well, I want to remind everyone this movie opens this Friday in theaters.
Friday in the theaters, and also on demand, the iTunes, Amazon, whatever you get, it's on there too. That's the way they release pictures now. It's in the theaters, it's also on the television, it's everywhere.
But I do urge everyone to spread the word. Do you guys have like a Twitter handle or anything for this movie?
Yeah, I mean, we do. Honey, what is the Twitter handle? I don't know. I just tweeted it out today.
You're on Twitter.
I did it. Yeah. I mean, we're going to have a screening, I guess, on what?
It is just at Shock and Awe.
At Shock and Awe, yeah.
Great. So please do spread the word. I want to thank you guys for being a great audience.
Thank you very much. You've been great. Great.
Thank you. Sorry I went long.
That's all right.